I found out I was adopted by accident. Now my whole family is dead to me. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I, 27M, always felt like something was off about my family, but I could never quite name it. We looked normal from the outside. White picket fence, middle-class neighborhood, backyard birthday parties, and photo albums filled with smiling faces. I grew up with two younger siblings, Emily and Josh, both of whom I always felt oddly detached from, despite being raised together under the same roof. We weren't enemies. They were never openly cruel, but there was always this invisible line between us that I could never cross, no matter how hard I tried. I used to chalk it up to being the oldest. Everyone says the firstborn always gets the strict rules and heavy expectations. And that's true. I was grounded for grades they got praise for. I wasn't allowed to sleep over at friends' houses, but they were. I got a part-time job at 16, while they got cars handed to them for theirs. But I figured that's just how families work. Every kid's story is a little different, right? Still, some things never made sense. When I was about 9, I remember overhearing my mom whispering to my aunt about papers and how they'd keep it quiet. I didn't know what they meant at the time. Thought maybe someone in the family had gone to jail or had a divorce or something. Another time, when I was 15, I found a baby photo album in the attic with someone else's name on the inside cover, Liam. I asked my mom who it was. She smiled a little too tightly and said it was a cousin who passed away as a baby. The album was gone the next day. By the time I hit college, I had gotten used to feeling like a guest in my own house. I still came back for holidays, still called my mom once a week, still did my best to play the role. But the emotional distance was something I had grown to accept, even if I didn't understand it. Then my dad died last year. It was sudden. A heart attack in his sleep. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. He was only 58. My siblings and I all came back home immediately. The funeral was quiet, tasteful, and understated, just like him. He had always been a quiet man, never very affectionate, but not unkind. I spent years hoping to crack through the silence between us. I never did. After the funeral, we were all called into the attorney's office for the will reading. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a few mementos or some sentimental items. I figured the house would go to my mom, and any savings would be split between us kids. That's how this kind of thing works, right? Wrong. The will was simple and direct. The house went to my mom. His car and some savings went to Emily and Josh. His tools and workshop gear to Josh, who never even touched a wrench in his life. Emily got a small trust fund for her future children. My name was never mentioned. Not once. I sat there in stunned silence as the lawyer read it out again. I thought maybe there was a mistake. A second document. Something he forgot. But the lawyer cleared his throat and looked at me with a strange mixture of sympathy and awkwardness. I know this might be surprising, he said, carefully avoiding my eyes, but your father was very specific in his wishes. I turned to my mom, waiting for her to explain. She didn't. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. What is this? I finally asked. Why wasn't I included? There was a pause. Emily shifted uncomfortably. Josh just looked at the floor. And then my mom said it, just loud enough for me to hear. Because you're not technically his. My ears started ringing. What do you mean I'm not his? I said, I'm his son. I've always been his son. Another pause. Then Josh muttered, you were adopted. You didn't know? Everything in me froze. No, I said slowly. No, I didn't know. What are you talking about? That was when it all came out. Apparently, I was adopted when I was a baby. A private arrangement with a distant relative on my mother's side. No official agency. No paperwork I was allowed to see. I had been brought into the family quietly, raised as if I was theirs, but never told. The siblings knew. The cousins knew. The grandparents knew. I was the only one living in this Truman Show bubble, thinking I belonged. And suddenly every weird memory, every moment that never quite made sense, clicked into place like a sick puzzle. The photo album with someone else's name. The whispered conversations. The extra rules. The distance. The fact that my dad never once said, I love you. I was just a kid they were playing house with. A charity case. A placeholder. I left the attorney's office without saying a word. Drove to a gas station parking lot and sat in my car for 2 hours, trying to breathe. I didn't go back to the house that night. That was the night my real life started. And the night my family, the only one I thought I had, died to me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car until sunrise, just staring out at the empty road, phone in my hand, but no one to call. I had friends, sure. A girlfriend I had been seeing on and off. But how do you even explain something like that? Hey, turns out I'm not even my dad's son, or my mom's, or anyone's, really. I've been a guest in someone else's lie for 27 years. No one prepares you for that kind of conversation. Eventually, I drove back to my apartment. I was living in a different city by then, about 2 hours away, but had kept in close touch with my family. Or so I thought. I hadn't spoken to my mom since the will reading. She hadn't called either. That silence was louder than anything she could have said. A few days later, I sent her a message. I need to talk. I deserve answers. She replied 5 hours later with, come by Sunday. We'll talk then. I arrived at the house and almost turned around before I even rang the bell. Everything about the place looked the same, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The porch I helped paint when I was 12. The lawn I mowed for years. The front door I used to run through after school, dropping my backpack and yelling Mom. I rang the bell. My mom answered. She looked older than I remembered, more tired. But she gave me a weak smile like nothing had happened. Come in, she said. I made coffee. I followed her in and sat at the kitchen table. My siblings were already there. Josh looked uncomfortable. Emily was scrolling through her phone like she couldn't care less. My mom sat across from me, folded her hands, and sighed. I'm sorry you found out that way, she said. I blinked. That was it. That's what she opened with. I didn't respond. She went on. We were going to tell you. We just didn't know when the right time was. You had 27 years, I said. You couldn't find a moment in 27 years. Her mouth tightened. You had a good life. We raised you like our own. That's what matters. I wanted to scream. You lied to me. My entire life has been a lie. Why did you do this? Why didn't you just tell me? She exchanged a glance with Emily, who finally put her phone down and said flatly, we didn't think you could handle it. I turned to her. You knew. She shrugged. We found out when we were kids. You were different. We figured it out. Different? I asked. What does that mean? Josh finally spoke. Come on, man. You were always the odd one out. You don't look like us. You don't talk like us. You didn't fit. I sat there stunned. All those years I spent trying to bond with them, defend them, be a good brother, and they were talking about me like I was a stranger. So, I was just a charity case? I asked. Some kid you took in to feel good about yourselves? My mom shook her head. You're my son, Liam. That hasn't changed. I flinched at the name. Liam. The name I had seen in that photo album all those years ago. Was that even my name? Did they even know my name when they took me? What do you even know about me? I asked. Where did I come from? Who are my parents? She hesitated. They were distant relatives, she said. There was a situation. Drugs, I think. Abuse. They couldn't keep you. We stepped in. Names? I asked. We don't know, she said. Too quickly. Too rehearsed. You're lying, I said. She didn't deny it. That night, I tore my apartment apart looking for anything. Any clue that could tell me who I really was. Old documents, photo albums, birth certificates. I found nothing. My birth certificate listed my adoptive parents as my real ones. There was no adoption paperwork. No agency. No records. Just a perfect, curated lie. I spent the next few weeks spiraling. I stopped answering calls, stopped going out. I quit my job. I was working IT support, and suddenly I couldn't sit through another phone call with someone asking me for help when I couldn't even help myself. I drank too much, stopped eating properly, slept during the day, and stared at the ceiling all night. No one from my family checked in. Not once. One night, I tried to call my mom. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail, begging her to at least tell me the truth. I told her I felt like I was going crazy, that I needed something to hold on to. Anything. She texted me the next day. I'm sorry you're hurting, but this is something you'll have to work through on your own. We've given you a good life. That should be enough. Enough? That was the last straw. I blocked her number, blocked Emily and Josh too, deleted every family photo from my phone, took down the framed ones from my shelves, stuck them in a box, and shoved it into the back of my closet. That was the moment I went no contact. I didn't know who I was. but I knew who I wasn't anymore. Grief is weird when you don't know what you're grieving. I wasn't mourning a death. I was mourning the illusion of a family. The belief that I had roots, that I belonged somewhere, that I had a place in this world. All of that was gone now. People talk about going no contact like it's some empowering mic drop moment. But when it's your entire family, it feels more like you've jumped out of a plane and left your parachute behind. I didn't feel free. I felt lost. Empty. Like I was standing in a life I no longer recognized, surrounded by people who didn't know me and never had. I deleted their numbers. I unfollowed every one of them on social media. That part was surprisingly easy. What wasn't easy was suddenly remembering I had no one to call on holidays. No home to visit on Thanksgiving. No group texts. No birthday calls. Silence. I kept seeing families on the street. Fathers walking their sons into stores. Moms arguing with their teenage daughters. Kids laughing in backyards. And I hated all of them for having what I thought I did. The questions consumed me. Who were my real parents? Why did they give me up? Why didn't anyone think I deserved to know? I started looking into it, but it was like chasing smoke. Since my adoption wasn't official, there were no legal records. Just the birth certificate my adoptive parents had altered. I paid for one of those Find Your DNA Matches services. Spit in a tube, mailed it off, and waited. When the results came back, there were distant matches, third cousins, maybe fourth, but nothing close enough to lead me anywhere solid. No parents. No siblings. No answers. I sent messages to the closest matches. One replied, saying they had never heard of me. The others ignored me. I even messaged one of my aunts, my mom's sister. I asked her what she knew. She read the message and never responded. A few days later, I noticed I was blocked. That was the moment it clicked. They were all in on it. Everyone. Every holiday smile. Every gift. Every I'm proud of you. Fake. They let me sit at the table all those years, laughing at jokes I wasn't in on. Being part of a family that had secret meetings about who I really was. And no one had the spine to tell me. A few weeks later, I ran into Emily at a grocery store. I wasn't expecting it. She spotted me in the produce section and walked right up like nothing had happened. Hey, she said. I just looked at her. You look like crap, she added with a little laugh. I didn't respond. She shifted her weight and rolled her eyes. Look, I get that you're upset, but are you seriously going to ignore all of us forever? I stared at her. I was never part of you. You made that clear. She sighed. Jesus, Liam, grow up. You act like you were abused or something. You had a roof over your head. Food. Clothes. A family. No, I said. You had a family. I had a contract no one told me about. Her face changed then. Annoyance hardened into something colder. You always were dramatic, she said. Maybe this is why they never told you. You can't handle the truth without making it all about you. And then she walked off. I stood there holding a bruised apple in my hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Dramatic. That's how they saw me. Not a brother betrayed. Not a son lied to. Just some outsider throwing a tantrum for not getting his way. After that, I hit bottom. My girlfriend left. Said I'd changed. That I was angry all the time. That I never wanted to go out. Never smiled anymore. I don't blame her. I barely recognized myself. I couldn't hold a job. I spent most of my time online, scrolling through forums about secret adoptions, reading horror stories from people like me who had been shut out by the very people who raised them. One night, I looked in the mirror and didn't see a person. Just an open wound with legs. Someone who didn't belong anywhere. I'd lost my family, my identity, my relationship, my sense of self. I was drifting, and then something shifted. I was watching a video one night, some random podcast about family estrangement and toxic dynamics. A guest said something that stuck with me. The people who break you are never the ones who put you back together. You do that yourself. It hit me like a hammer. I had been waiting for an apology, waiting for them to come clean, to say they were sorry, to give me back something that resembled the truth. But they never would. They didn't think they did anything wrong. And if they weren't going to fix what they broke, I had to. That was the night I started a blog. I called it Blood Isn't Thicker, a place where people like me could write anonymously about betrayal, lies, and walking away from family. At first, it was just a few posts. My story, broken into parts. I didn't use names. Didn't even mention I was adopted. Just said I was the outsider in my own home. People read it, shared it, commented. Hundreds of strangers saying this is my story too. Thousands of people messaging me privately to say they knew exactly what it felt like to be left out of the will, to find out they were adopted late in life, to be treated like a guest in their own family. I wasn't alone. That changed everything. Bit by bit, I rebuilt myself. I got a freelance job doing tech support and remote IT management. Started saving. Went back to therapy. I talked about the adoption, the betrayal, the loneliness. And slowly, I got stronger. I wasn't fixed, but I was functioning. I even started recording podcast episodes, short ones. Just me talking about the weight of family secrets and the freedom that comes with cutting ties. I didn't think anyone would care, but they did. Eventually, the podcast blew up. Sponsors reached out. I was invited onto a few interview shows. People wanted to hear my story. The kid who used to beg his dad to look at his science fair projects was now being asked to speak at adoption trauma panels. I wasn't just rebuilding. I was rising. And then, after 2 years of silence, they reached out. An email from Josh. Subject, can we talk? I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for an hour, heart pounding. I already knew what it would say. I could feel the shift in the wind before it ever arrived. They needed something. They always do. I didn't open Josh's email that night or the next day. I let it sit in my inbox like a live wire, buzzing with all the unspoken guilt and fake apologies I knew were waiting inside. I wanted to believe, maybe, just maybe, this was a turning point. That he'd say something that would make the years of betrayal shrink, that the wounds would finally get some closure. But I learned better by now. I finally opened the email 3 days later. It said, "Hey, Mom's not doing great. She's been asking about you. We all think it's time we talked. You made your point. Can we please sit down like adults and work this out? No cameras, no blog, just us." I almost laughed. You've made your point. Like this was some protest. Like cutting off the only people I'd ever known wasn't the most painful decision of my life. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. A week later, I got another message, this time from Emily. Instagram DMs. I'd forgotten I hadn't blocked her there. Saw your latest post. You're really turning this into a brand. Hope it was worth it. That one I did reply to. It was. Thanks for the motivation. She didn't respond, but I could feel the pressure building. My blog had gone viral again after I posted an essay titled, "The Family Lie That Took My Name." It wasn't even about them directly, but it struck a nerve. People were tagging me, reposting it, quoting lines about how being lied to by your own parents doesn't just hurt, it rewrites your identity. 2 weeks later, a podcast I appeared on hit #1 on Spotify in the relationships category. A talent agent reached out, asking if I'd ever thought of writing a memoir. I said yes, and that's when my mom finally called. It was a private number. I usually don't answer those, but something told me it was her. Hello. A pause. Then, Liam. I didn't say anything. It's me, your mother. I still didn't speak. I saw the podcast, she said quietly. And the article. Everyone's talking about it. Is that why you're calling? I cut in. Because I'm getting attention now? No, she said quickly. Well, yes. I mean, I didn't know it had gotten so bad. I didn't realize how much pain you were in. Because you never cared to look. Silence. I want to make things right, she said eventually. You can't. She sniffled. I raised you. I gave you everything. You gave me a lie. I snapped. You raised me like I was a secret. Like I wasn't allowed to know where I came from. I didn't know what to tell you. It was complicated. No, I said, my voice steady. It was cowardly. She didn't argue, which was almost worse. I'm sorry, she whispered. But it wasn't enough. She asked if we could meet. I agreed. Not because I wanted reconciliation. I just wanted to see it. The shame. The guilt. I wanted to watch them squirm in the truth they've buried for decades. We met at a neutral place, a cafe in a quiet part of town. She brought Josh. Emily didn't show. My mom looked smaller than I remembered. Paler. Like the weight of everything had finally started dragging her down. Josh looked sheepish, still trying to play peacemaker. They tried to do the whole "we miss you" act, so they were proud of what I was doing, that they were just scared, that it all got out of hand. I let them talk, and then I told them what it felt like. What it felt like to find out I was adopted by accident. What it felt like to be shut out, to be lied to to be dismissed as dramatic. What felt like to go home and see my name erased from the will like I was never even there. I watched it all land. My mom started crying halfway through. Josh just sat there staring at the table. They didn't interrupt once. When I finished, I said, "You don't get to rewrite this. You don't get to pat yourselves on the back for giving me a good life and act like that excuses everything." My mom reached across the table. "We just want our son back." I shook my head. "You never lost me. You just never wanted me as I really am." And then I left. I didn't look back, didn't call, didn't check in. A few days later, I posted a new blog entry. Closure doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes healing means walking away completely, even when they're sorry, especially when they're not. The post got more shares than anything I'd written before. Strangers messaged me saying they finally blocked their toxic parents. Others said they cried reading it. One said it gave them the courage to go no contact for the first time in their life. That was the moment I realized I was a son, just not theirs anymore. I'm writing this now from a small cabin I bought up north. The memoir is almost done. The podcast is thriving. And I've started reconnecting with people. Real connections built on truth, not obligation. I still don't know who my biological parents are. Maybe I never will. But for the first time, I'm not defined by that void. I have my own story now. And that's more than enough. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.